Hello, everyone. My name is Scott. I'm really grateful for everyone that's joined. I know that it's the middle of the workday. You probably have many other things that you can do, but you are dedicating yourself to learn about something new and be able to take that back to your team and hopefully make some big impact. So as you saw from the title, as you saw as you were signing up, you are probably a little familiar with website personalization. Maybe you've given it a go, maybe you're actively working on personalization campaigns right now. But as you're well, there might be some more demystification that needs to happen, right? So how can we be more successful with website personalization, or even just be successful at it at all? So I'll just talk a little bit about myself really quick. So I'm a product manager at Pantheon platform. I work on the Edge integrations team. We're building out Pantheon's take on personalization. In a past life, I was a freelancer and also ran an agency. I developed out a site with a client that right now gets 3 million ARR through a WooCommerce subscription store. With that client, I spent about maybe 30 minutes activating an abandoned cart system that now has perpetually increased their sales 10% every single month, just with that automation that sits there, does its thing, and is pretty effective to boost sales like that. And in a past life, I also built a viral fundraising website. We were able to get about 10 million page views in 1 week. And we popped it onto some $5 hosting that was quite scalable, and we're able to handle that traffic quite easily. So we raised about, I think it was about $55,000 right at the height of the pandemic. So it's a great campaign. And in a very previous life, I was a writer for 9to5Mac. I wrote about Apple news, Apple rumors, basically whatever's happening in tech, I like to write about. In terms of non-work, I like to travel. I miss Bali, and I'm currently figuring out how I can get back there again sometime soon. I even did a podcast series with the friends called The Nomads Aren't All Right, talking about how to work while being remote, and how to be most successful, how to know what travel gear to bring, all that fun stuff. And I am a composting and clean energy advocate. Somehow Los Angeles, where I'm at, we don't have a full-on composting program, but thankfully there's community programs nearby that I'm a happy advocate for it. So let's talk about what we're going to be talking about in the webinar today. So first we'll chat through is what is personalization? We'll go through some best practices, and then we'll get into how to get started. So the beginning steps of creating a successful personalization campaign, how we can go beyond personalization. So using the personalization tools on your website, how can you do even more? We'll talk about Pantheon's approach, so what we're building with Edge integrations, and then we'll hop into some Q&A. So before we begin, a simple question that I'd love for you to just pop in the chat. You can select in the chat just to share it with everyone. What is personalization? When you think of personalization, what comes to mind for you? Targeted content. Very good. Perfect. Don't be shy. I won't judge it. You can also judge personalization. Well, more than anything, I think we've all heard this phrase, right? Delivering the right content to the right person at the right time. It's a very fitting, yeah, John, that's exactly right. Targeted content, and we're delivering the right content to the right person. It makes sense, right? So we're starting to personalize who is seeing the content. We're personalizing what they're seeing and making sure that either it's the right time of the day, right? Maybe that's a type of personalization, or the right time in their conversion funnel, or how they're deciding to sign up for maybe signing up for college and applying for a major, right? We're showing the right content depending on what phase in the decision flow they're in. So what do we mean by the right person? Well, there's a few different ways that we can target and understand the right person. The first would be their geography, right? So we can start to target somebody based on more macro levels, their country, or even more micro levels, like their IP address, exactly where in the world they're located. Maybe we even know that they're on campus for a college, or we know that they're at the nonprofit's location or a certain targeted area for a nonprofit. We can use geography to start knowing who is the person that we're trying to target. Next would be site behavior. So we have things like visitor activity on the website, what content are they viewing, or refer information. Do we know did they come from a specific Facebook ad? Did they come from another nonprofit's website? We're able to use that information to start determining who they are. Then we get into first-party identifiers. So are we able to match them to an entry in our CDP, in our customer data platform, or maybe into our CRM? We're able to see that they filled in a form before, and so now we're familiar with who they are. And lastly, we have another way of identifying someone based off of what I like to call contact enrichment sources. So these are other third-party data platforms where you can feed them just a little bit of data about the visitor, and they'll return a lot of information about who is visiting your website. Now, there are a lot of identifiers related to figuring out who is the right person. This is just even a small little glimpse of ways that you can understand who someone is. We have those geo identifiers that we talked about before, like country, region, city. With a CDN, with some more technology on your website, you can even understand what the internet speed is and be able to target different content to them based off of that. We can show different content maybe based off the time, the day, or the month. We can start to understand their interests, right? So how many page views are they accessing on the website? We get more technical information like their browser, their operating system, where they came from, right? Refer, or their UTM, the UTM strings that we set up in our marketing campaign. In the middle column, we have some more of these that are related to behavior. So we have shopping cart contents, purchase history, web form data, and a lot of those in that middle column are related to what somebody's doing on your website. And on the right, we have a lot of these content enrichment sources. So we can send information about a visitor and return back and understand what is the company size for the person that's visiting. So are they part of a startup, or are they part of a large corporation? What industry are they in? If they're a startup, do we know if they're Series A, Series B, or wherever else in the funding flow they're in? We can know if they're B2B, B2C. We can know if they're EDU, nonprofit. We have a lot of different ways that we can target somebody. Now let's talk about the right content. So there's two different ways that I like to think about the right content. So one would be manual. So we can set up a specific homepage hero depending on who's visiting on the website. We can say they're getting a specific headline or a specific piece of imagery. And the nice part with delivering the right content is that we don't need to show sliders anymore. So instead of just looping through lots of content because we don't know who's visiting on the website, instead we can show the right content specific to the person that's visiting. We could also update our testimonials to say, we want to make sure that the testimonials related to their specific customer persona or their segment, and make sure it really aligns with what that persona is interested in. We can update call to actions and show a different call to action based off of the segment. Or as another example, we could show different navigation menu items depending on who's visiting. So as an example, if you're let's just say a worldwide movie production company, you could show different links to buy tickets depending on what country the visitor is in, rather than just having a general link that works for everyone. You can make it more localized, more regionalized, and make sure that the customer is getting to where they need to go to buy a ticket right away. On the other side, we have more programmatic content. So we've all seen things like "you might also like," or on Amazon, we've seen the customers who bought this product also bought, etc. And that's something where the folks who are entering in content, they can go through and start adding tags related to how products are associated with each other, but the website itself is starting to make those associations, right? It can look through the database and start to pick out and pull information about relationships between different products. We also have programmatic means of locations near you or events near you. Those are things where you're not setting up a system where you're saying, oh, if somebody visits in this location, here's the 5 that we'll show. Instead, you're entering in the events, and the system itself is viewing who's visiting and delivering the right content, the right events near them. As we talked about before, we can start to show localized pricing or languages and auto-detecting the user's region or the user's language preferences to show the right content for them. And on a programmatic scale, we can also show regional imagery. So this is the example that I love so much, which is when you log into Chase, the Chase Bank's website, or sorry, their mobile app, they'll use regional imagery as the background for the login screen. So this, for example, somebody lives in Tampa, and so they're able to see the Riverwalk near them. And the app even personalizes depending on the time of day. So this is somebody that's accessing it in the middle of the day. They have nighttime versions of this as well, where they found regional imagery for that location, but it's based at night. So this is another audience participation here. Why do you think that Chase does that? What does that do to personalize this login experience? So I think we'll talk about this in a little bit, because I love that one person said it's a little creepy. And then on the flip side, John said, this makes people feel comfortable, right? So we'll talk about this a little bit later, right? That there's 2 different aspects to this, of the creepy factor versus the comfort factor. And it changes person to person. Personally, I love this feature because in some ways, Chase is a big bank, right? They are kind of a cold brand if they're not doing something like this. It's just, I don't feel like I've ever had a relationship with Chase in any way. They're just a big bank who does something, but by personalizing the login experience, they're bringing themselves to the location, right? They're representing themselves as part of the location where the user is in, rather than just being this big conglomerate with a blue background and not being personalized in any way. So it adds a level of kind of hominess. It makes it so it's more relatable. And even though it is programmatic in the end of the day, this is something that somebody just programmed in, it does feel like they added this special touch to find regional imagery related to where the user is, and connect with these people who are saying, oh, the Riverwalk is totally something that I relate to, and it's a part of why I love living in Tampa, right? So there's really cool benefits to personalization here. Okay, so I threw a lot at you in these couple of minutes here of all those identifiers, all of these ways that we can create specific content, all these ways that we can target specific people. And I don't know about you, but I'm pretty overwhelmed, right? And I think this is actually where personalization goes off the rails pretty often, is that it's really easy to want to boil the ocean, right? It's really easy to want to do lots of things and target lots of different personas and have lots of different running campaigns rather than having a specific narrow focus. So instead of the explanation for personalization that we've had before, the right content for the right person and the right time, here's what I prefer to think of personalization as. Let's enhance the site experience for your visitor to better serve their needs. So this is wholly focusing on the user experience rather than the experience of what content are we showing for folks. I was recently at WordCamp EU, it was the WordPress conference in Europe, and I was at the privacy workshop for Google. So they were talking about kind of where things are headed when it comes to cookies and even personalization. How do we handle personalization as user privacy becomes all the more paramount? And an agency owner there was talking about their efforts with personalization. And they said, we've been trying to implement personalization for 10 years. Only those who prioritize user delight are succeeding. So it really stood out to me that an agency owner, even after 10 years, they're still using the phrase trying when it comes to personalization. That after all of this time, there is no just click, here's the magic, right? It still takes an understanding of what is the user trying to accomplish and thinking from their purview, how can we make their experience delightful? So let's talk about some best practices to do just that. The first, like I just said, let's start with the visitor's goals. So let's break out to the visitors into some personas, right? So maybe somebody that, if it's again a college, right? We're maybe thinking of a persona that's an active student, or somebody that is interested in becoming a student, or someone that is an alumni and they would like to be able to donate to the college. Let's start to break down the personas and discreetly think about what are their goals for the website. Next, another best practice is to not be creepy, right? So content enrichment tools should enrich, not encroach. It's really easy to take these tools that just, you can give them an IP address or you can give them a visitor's browser information and they'll return everything about a visitor without them even consenting in any way. There was even one of these tools where I was looking into the tool and I went onto their website, and they showed off personalization by loading up my website and starting to personalize it. I had never entered in a form. I'd never said anything about myself. I'd never interacted with this company before. And immediately they were showing my website on their website. And I don't know about you, but that's a little creepy, right? And that's, like we saw before, there's definitely, everyone has their own spectrum of what they find creepy versus what they are accepting of. But as you're working through your personalization goals, really consider this, that creating a creepy experience can really turn people off and make it so that folks are kind of weary of your brand rather than embracing it even further. Next, best practice here, analytics integration is key. So if you're not building in reporting into your personalization, if you're not understanding whether or not they're successful, you don't have a proper feedback cycle. And this is actually where I know that we have a lot of developers on the webinar today. And so this is where developers can be best suited to help marketers with personalization. And that is making sure that every button, we know when folks are clicking on buttons, we know when folks are seeing certain personalization experiences, and delivering that information to Google Analytics or wherever else your analytics source may be, and being able to create reports that show whether or not something is working or not. Next is making sure that the whole entire web team is aligned. So we'll talk about Pantheon's edge integrations are personalization offering in a little bit and how we helped create better web team alignment. But a lot of current tools out there divide the web team. They make it so that what the marketer is able to do is not what the developer expects, right? Or the development team doesn't know how to build what the marketer is looking for because they're using MarTech that is either unfamiliar or just kind of takes the website and does what it wants with it. As an example, I love bringing up this example because I think it's just wild to think about. I had a boss who was the head of marketing at a company, and when he first joined, IT would not give him access to the CMS. He was having troubles getting into the CMS, and so he did find that he had access to Optimizely. He had access to the A/B testing software that was installed on the website. So you might guess where this is going. He created an A/B test and started updating the website to exactly what he wanted it to say, which was completely different. He changed all the content, all the graphics, and then he set it so 100% of the traffic on the website went to this new test. So if you ever logged into the CMS, the content there was way different than what you would expect, right? Or it was not showing what was actually on the front end. He really was able to go quite far with Optimizely. And if you think about it, going back to this web team alignment, the alignment was not there, right? So what IT wanted, what the development team wanted, and what the marketer wanted were not on the same page. So you have to be creating alignment between all internal goals before moving forward. The last best practice that I'll talk about here is to ensure that you convert anonymous users as often as possible. So when somebody first comes onto the website, if you don't have any past identifiers about them, if you don't have any CDP integration related to them, you have no way of really knowing who they are and creating, or let me say that differently. You don't have the best knowledge about who they are. And you could probably take even better advantage of it if you know information. Maybe they've been a donor before, maybe they were a student. You have a lot of information within your CDP that you could take advantage of. So if you can create perks for those logged in users to enter in their email address or log in some way, then now you can identify them with other information that you have and better provide a personalized experience for them. So let's talk about getting started. The first thing that I would suggest is to start small. Like I said before, don't boil the ocean. Don't try to do lots of things at once. Maybe even just change the headline on the homepage, right? So if we know who they are, where they're located, let's show a different headline on the homepage and maybe a different call to action and see through our reporting, through our analytics, what is successful. Building confidence with easy wins is the best way to continue growing with personalization and taking it even further, doing CDP integration, doing all the other integrations that are possible. Once you know you have your footing down, that's when you can really start to build things out. And next, just like we talked about before, when it comes to reporting, treat this as a full-on experiment, right? So treat each personalization campaign as an experiment. Have a hypothesis. What do you think will happen to the results? How much of an increase do you expect this personalization will have on your conversions? And then set a timeline for reviewing the data. So we've seen that a lot of personalization campaigns end up just being personalization changes that nobody ever actually goes back and checks, right? Nobody says, did that work? Was it even better for when we didn't personalize that experience? If you aren't going back and reviewing that data, it's hard to know whether or not your personalization is having the right impact or to get the team to build even further. So let's talk about going beyond. Now that you have your personalization tools set up, you're trying some personalization campaigns, what else can you do with your personalization tooling? Now, one of the greatest things that you can do with personalization is to start A/B testing. This here you'll see, this was Uber's landing page for drivers. So folks who are interested in driving for Uber, quite a few years ago, they had this landing page where every 30 minutes. They were trying a new way of how the content was laid out or even different wording. So you'll see here, the headline was like driving, earn more time or earn more for your time. And then another time they tried interested in driving with Uber. They also changed, instead of make great money, they changed it to make good money. Now they get enough traffic on this page that they're able to change it every 30 minutes because they're able to tell what is being successful, right? So A/B testing is definitely an amazing tool that you're able to take the same tooling you have for personalization and now apply it over to A/B testing. This is another one that I really like, which is Amazon testing out their Amazon vehicles page and trying out what it would look like if all the colors of the cars were gray versus if they are all colorful. And especially at Amazon's volume, they're able to tell pretty quickly what is going to be the most successful. So let's talk about the personalization landscape. We've alluded to a couple different tools that are out there already, but let's talk about some of the challenges with the tools that are out there currently. And the first is that a lot of them create a different third-party editor for creating content. So instead of creating more content within the CMS, you're sent to some other tool that sometimes allows you to do anything. You can change any of the colors, you can go outside of the brand expectations, you can add whatever graphics you want, and it's hard to track as a marketer where that content actually is. We call it a shadow CMS, where you have the regular CMS, maybe it's Drupal, maybe it's WordPress, and then you have a completely different area where you're creating that personalized content. Another issue is that we've all seen those content flickers, right? So the original content loads, it's able to load up some JavaScript, and then it goes, oh yeah, this person, I know who they are, I'm gonna show different content to them. And that can damage your SEO, and it can damage the user experience, where users in some ways can see that they're being tested on, or they might start reading the original content and then get the flicker to the new content. A lot of personalization tools too are a large all or nothing big ticket purchase. They require a lot of commitment up front. And more times than not, they end up becoming shelfware, where the team was excited to purchase it, the team was excited about the potential for it, and then actually implementing it became a big ordeal. And so it does, the tool goes nowhere, right? The other piece too is that iteration is necessary to prove value and build a strategy. And a lot of these tools don't have the proper reporting for you to be able to understand whether or not your strategy is moving in the right direction. So let's talk about Pantheon edge integrations then. Let's talk about some features of Pantheon's edge integrations. The first is that you're able to target folks through geo-targeting. So we can understand where they're located, or what country or what language they're expecting on the website. We can deliver the correct content based off of geo-targeting. We can also do interest tracking. We can see what is the content that somebody's viewing as they're navigating throughout the website, and start to surface content related to that very quickly. As another example, I like to allude to the higher ed experience quite a bit. So if we're able to see that somebody is interested in a certain major or a certain type of career, that we can now deliver more content like that on the homepage, on other services pages, we're able to start bubbling up content without them having to dig for it. Now, this is the biggest differentiator with edge integrations, and that's that we're doing this at the edge. And so when we are able to detect at the edge that there's a specific visitor trying to access the website, we can deliver their variation of the content from the edge. There's no content flickering. There's no JavaScript of trying to figure out which version it should be showing. Immediately, the pages load so quick, they load as fast as any other page, and there's no difference to the user experience or to the search engine crawling experience. Another piece too is that you're able to edit the content in the CMS. So whether that's Drupal, whether that's WordPress, you're able to reuse existing lead gen assets, you're able to reuse existing branding and pull that into the same content editing experience. And lastly, edge integrations can work with your CDP. Edge integrations can work with your analytics platform or your CRM. We're able to pull in content from these other places or pull in data from these other places and start to personalize based off of that. So as a whole, Pantheon's platform is built for rapid marketing ROI. So edge integrations is just another piece of that we're able to do more iterative testing. We're able to get better reporting in. We're able to understand, is marketing being effective? And is marketing creating the personalized experiences that customers are looking for that now is increasing our conversion rates or increasing our signups, increasing people that are engaging with our brand in any way? So I just want to show a little bit of a demo of how it looks from the CMS perspective. And so this is going to be the Drupal perspective. One of our sales engineers here at Pantheon have built a demo website called Taiki Bikes. And it's a bike shop website. And they have personalizations either for folks who are visiting from the US or folks who are visiting from Canada. There's different wording, there's different background images. And as well, there's some personalization depending on what kind of content you're viewing on the website. So if the website is able to detect that you're more of a city biker, then it can show more bikes related to those that might be interesting for you. Or if you're the kind of biker who wants to take it on the mountains, now we're able to see that you're visiting that kind of content and show you bikes related to that. So I'll play this video here, which is just a quick couple minutes showing how Renee edits the content from the CMS perspective and creates variations to display different content for those segments.
Here's the same Taiki page, but I'm logged in as an administrator now. Taiki's market, as I mentioned, here are the two personalizations that you just saw, the regional and the seasonal products. So two of the segments that Taiki's marketers have defined are these outdoor segments. We know we want to market specific products to these people. And we've decided that people who view content that is tagged the pre-existing taxonomy on my site, outdoors, are going to count as this off-road segment. And we also have our default segment, which is our community segment. And we've defined that as anybody who has an interest set as community, but also as a default. So we're just going to show everybody this unless they fall into another bucket. You could have multiple buckets, multiple segments that you define, and you could base that on what content that they're seeing on your site. So now you want to use these segments. What do you have to do? Now I'm using Drupal here. You can use WordPress as well. We have a lot of examples for both. But in Drupal, we have the smart content module that we're leveraging. And that allows us to use this block-based decisioning to be very precise and quick. I'm going to create a block. It's asking me what segment do I want to decide on. In this case, I'm going to choose seasonal products, which is the segment we just saw me create. And now it says, what do you want to show to people in the off-road segment? And what do you want to show to your urban riders? So here's where I would choose that quote from our urban planner, Jun, or from our Olympic athlete, Holly. So if they fall into this segment, show them Holly. If they're our default segment or our community riders, show them Jun. And that's all there is to it. Cut one extra piece of content, a couple of extra clicks, and you're able to be as effective and impactful as you need to be to serve that content to the right folks. Here's the same Taiki page, but I'm logged.
Awesome. So let's talk about what it looks like to succeed with edge integrations. The first step, like we talked about before, is developing your segmentation goals. So what is the user experience that we're looking to better? And what does it look like? Oh, we're getting flipped around here. What improvements can we make to that user experience? Next, we'll set up the personalization plugins and modules for edge integrations. So those pop right into your CMS. We will configure the content, configure the editing tools. So if you're on WordPress, maybe you're using ACF to edit content, or you're using Gutenberg, you'll integrate Gutenberg directly with edge integrations. Next, add your MarTech and data integrations. So if you're talking to Segment or any other CRM, any other CDP, you'll then, of course, validate your personalization hypothesis, measure conversion rates, measure success rates, capture that ROI, and repeat, right? Thankfully, you don't have to, you just have to repeat back the building content again. But you're able to continue to learn about what is successful and grow your website's capabilities. So I've linked over here to Pantheon's Edge integrations documentation. It's one of the best places to start learning about what it looks like to build with Edge integrations. I'm also available by email here, scott.buscemi@pantheon.io. And definitely happy to talk about personalization with you and your team, and talk even further about what it would look like to integrate Edge integrations onto your website.